Přednáška bude celá v angličtině. Co se týče dotazů, nebojte se případně dotazy psát i v češtině, bude případně tlumočit. A přednášet nám bude Artem z JetBrains, což je firma, která vyrábí PhpStorm, o kterém jste asi 2/3 z vás prohlásili, že ho používáte. To znamená, můžete si poslechnout a následně na party poromluvit si s člověkem, který PhpStorm opravdu aktivně vyvíjí a bude mluvit o tom, co je tady napsané, a to už jde úplně mimo mě. I would like to invite Artem, and what he disclosed about himself is that he plays airsoft and he sailed on the ship from the 16th century. So, please.
Hi everyone, I'm glad to see you here. So yeah, my name is Artem Khvastunov. I'm working on PhpStorm at JetBrains. I was told that most of you knows what PhpStorm is, so I don't need to explain. But the question is that, who really use it? So can you raise your hand? Oh, I'm impressed. Like, they didn't like it. It's great. And who likes it? Like, wow, amazing. Thank you, folks. So yeah, we are a team of 15. We are spread between two cities, St. Petersburg and Munich. And today I'm going to talk about exception handling in PHP in general. About how PhpStorm works and how we work on PhpStorm. And starting with the topic of exception handling, I have one more question for you. Who has ever seen a PHP stack trace when you open a website, want to see a page, but it's just like exception is thrown from blah 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 stack trace? So yeah, I see some hands. Oh, yeah, everyone's seen it, of course. I have seen it like a couple of months ago on some production website. It's still pretty common, and yeah, I believe it is a problem. So your customer doesn't get a content, it gets like some developer's information. So there is a way to prevent it actually. You can pay with the TPCPU of the developer's machine to analyze the flow of exceptions in the project, and basically it will help you to prevent such kind of errors. And PhpStorm helps here, thanks to its inspections. There are different approaches of handling exceptions. The first one is documenting them. So we start with the missing throws text inspection. It is a pretty old one. It was introduced back in 2012. Got improved in the fixed version. And as we are going to talk about how we work at PhpStorm team on an IDE, we will take a look on it from our side. So to understand how fast PhpStorm works, we are trying to analyze algorithms which are used to solve different problems. And yeah, in the fixed version, the algorithm was pretty simple. It was able to analyze only throw statements and only inside the function itself. So basically, looking at the tree, the amount of elements which have to be analyzed, it's not really big. So the growth of complexity looks like this, like on the plot. So on the horizontal axis, it's amount of functions in a file which needs to be analyzed, and on the vertical axis there is the amount of elements, basically throw statements, which have to be touched by PhpStorm. In the version 8, the analysis was improved, and PhpStorm started analyzing calls. So the tree for depth of one level is a bit bigger, and the amount of elements which have to be analyzed grows accordingly. the final shape of this inspection was built in the version 16.2. And when PhpStorm started to analyze up to 3 levels. So yeah, here's the tree, and yeah. Obviously, to check every call, inside every call, to check every call inside every call, and so on up to 3 levels, PhpStorm has to touch a lot of statements. Probably doesn't really good impressive on this plot, so let's increase the horizontal axis to 10 elements. So the difference is significant, and we definitely tried to make PhpStorm work as fast as possible. And by that time, there was a cache implemented, which allowed to save some computations and reuse them. Another solution was to just notify users that it is not really recommended to set the level above 1. So yeah, you can obviously see it from a plot. And here comes the new unhandled exception inspection. So it was built on top of the missing throw stacks and used the same engine, obviously. It was introduced in the current stable version, 17.3, which was released this autumn. Yeah, and to understand how fast it works, let's start looking at the existing solution. So, as we took the existing engine, we need to understand how it works. So let's analyze each cache property one by one, and let's start with the first one. What does per invocation cache mean in this context? Per invocation means that when PhpStorm analyzes a PHP file, it runs, let's say, several passes on a file. So the one pass is the run of one inspection on one element. So basically, the here is the a little bit different. This time it's not a tree, it's a graph with the dependencies. And the first pass may look like this. So the missing throw stack, text inspection starts. It takes the function, it analyzes each call in the function, and at the end it knows which exceptions are thrown from inside the function. Then it highlights a PHP doc to notify user, and then the second pass starts. The second pass of the unhandled exception inspection. It starts with the bar call, and actually PhpStorm already analyzes this chain, and it already knows that there is an exception thrown from this call, but the cache is local, so it's per invocation. One pass, one cache. So the information isn't shared between the passes, between inspections, which lead to the growth of complexity. So the initial implementation was really slow, and like we immediately saw it from the performance analysis. And yeah, we obviously had to solve it. So the 17.3 was analyzing like a lot of elements. So the 16.2. The new version was trying to analyze even more. The solution was to replace a per invocation with per function cache, which means that the information about the thrown exceptions are stored for the basically function's name. So if you know that the function bar throws an exception, this information is shared between all the passes. Which helped to reduce the amount of analyzed elements. So basically, the version of PhpStorm with the new inspection analyzes the same amount of elements. So it doesn't need to touch to spend more CPU analyzing the same elements again and again. But can we do better? Well, we can try. The second option is short-lived cache. What does short-lived mean? In this context, short-lived means that the cache is immediately invalidated when any file in a project is changed. So basically, typing in a file, updating files from PCS or remote server, or changing them any other way, leads to the cache invalidation. Yeah, PhpStorm basically needs it to update all the warnings. So if you have commented a throw statement, you don't want to see the highlighting about the thrown exception anymore. It is not thrown. Still, PhpStorm invalidates all the caches, so even for unrelated files. And theoretically, we can try to preserve unrelated caches, right? The thing here is that the cache itself is a kind of trade-off between CPU and memory. You spend some memory trying to save on computations on CPU. And to invalidate only dependent caches, PhpStorm needs to build a dependency graph, store it, and analyze it all the time for each function to understand whether the related files need to be updated or not. And in the worst case, this task is even more complicated than the analysis itself. So it starts consuming more CPU than it is trying to save. And here comes the cache invalidation problem. So as Phil Carlton said, there are two hard things in computer science: cache invalidation and naming things. And yeah, here is the problem, and we decided to not go this way. Instead, let's start with the third property, in memory. And yeah, in memory means that the information is not stored somewhere on a disk. So when you close PhpStorm and open it again, it has to perform all the analysis again to fill its caches. And we can't just store this information because of this cache invalidation problem. So we either will store a lot of information on disk. So basically, for one type symbol, PhpStorm will write another, I don't know, 50 megabytes of text information. Or it will need to analyze the graph, which leads to the CPU consuming, which is not a solution too. But is there a way to somehow store the information on disk? It would be great, yeah? And the solution actually is a PHP comment. So the PhpStorm obviously won't update your code for you without asking you, but it can help you document the unhandled exceptions. And doing this, you first of all help your reader, the reader of your code, who will understand what happens inside without looking at the code itself. So basically, saving time. Additionally, it helps PhpStorm to reduce the complexity. So knowing what is thrown from a function, PhpStorm can save on computations. So if theoretically each function, each method in the codebase has throws text in their PHP documents, PhpStorm won't depend on the depth of analysis. It will analyze everything on a basically single pass. It would be great, yeah, it will work really fast, but in the reality, no one really does and no one really tries to do it. And yeah, it has a reason. But what can we do on a PhpStorm side? To find it out, let's start with the problem itself. So let's take a look under the hood. What happens when PhpStorm analyzes the file, the function? First of all, it reads the information from disk, basically a PHP file. Then it performs lexeme parsing to build a tree, and on top of this tree, a control flow is created. A control flow is basically all the code paths which are possible for the function. And to optimize it, we need to understand how fast it works. And surprisingly, the lexeme parsing are really expensive tasks. They are even more expensive than the I/O operation of reading a file, because PhpStorm consumes a lot of CPU, building a token chain, creating an abstract syntax tree. Then there are a lot of temporary objects which are only created to represent a tree and to build a control flow, and they are not used anymore. So basically it's a huge memory traffic. So it would be great to get rid of this task, right? But they needed to build a control flow. And for what is control flow needed? It is needed basically for PhpStorm to understand what is thrown from inside the function and which of those thrown exceptions are caged inside the function. So if we can somehow find this information stored on disk, it will solve the problem. PhpStorm won't need to perform all the expensive steps anymore. And the solution to this problem is one more cache, this time persistent. And who has ever seen the similar pictures? Oh yeah, you know the problem. Yeah, like everyone hates indexing. Like you open a new project, you want to work on it, you have a passion to write some code, and like you cannot basically do it. IDE needs to build indices to understand the project. The problem in general is that sometimes it is really hard to avoid indexing. So PhpStorm needs to know, for instance, names of all classes, names of all functions, and so on. And it is only possible to know with the building indices, right? But for this task, there is another way. And the upcoming version 18.1, which is currently in the AEP stage, will be able to build on-demand caches, which basically mean that when you open a file for the first time, PhpStorm will analyze dependencies and build caches for the opened file and all dependent files. They will be stored on disk, and when you even open the IDE once again, it will reuse this information. So basically it works in the similar way like indices, but on a per file basis. So you don't need to perform all the computations on the first project opening. Instead, it will be done only for the needed files. To storing this information, PhpStorm uses so-called signatures. A signature is basically consists of an equivalent, the fully qualified name of a function or of a method. It means that the PhpStorm just remembers that there is a, say, function bus, which is called from a function foo, and that's it. Such a way it doesn't create any dependencies on the external files, which means that PhpStorm can invalidate such caches on a per file basis, which again saves us from the cache invalidation problem, and yeah, makes life much easier. The dependency tree looks pretty the same. In the worst case, PhpStorm still needs to perform lexing the parsing and touch every element. In the best case, it still will touch every element, but it will avoid the expensive parts. So in terms of performance analysis, the same amount of elements have to be touched. So it didn't change from the version 16.2. But how to understand that it really works better? It would be great to know that we achieved what we wanted to achieve. Yeah. Let's just perform some measurement. The numbers on a graph, on a plot, doesn't, like absolute numbers doesn't really make any sense. I've just took my laptop, it has pretty good processor, i7, and it also has SSDs. So on different machines it will work in a different time. But here you can see say dependencies, like so the blue bars is when you open a file for the first time. The red bars when you close the PhpStorm and open a file for the second time. And obviously, the previous version, they do all the things again and again, while the upcoming 18.1 on the first iteration will perform all the analysis, store all the information. That's why it works a little bit slower. But when you open the file for the second time, it works even faster than the previous version. So like 16.2, which is the first on the slide, didn't have the new unhandled exception inspection, but it works like twice slower in this scenario. So it's, I would say, pretty good achievement in terms of performance. And as we still have some time, let's talk about bonuses. You have probably noticed that PhpStorm not only saves signatures, but also it stores ranges. Range basically is the block in a file from which an exception is thrown. And using this information, we made surround vstrct smarter. So now it is able to understand what is thrown from a block which you have selected, and it suggests cache statements for each thrown exception. So save you some manual work, especially when there are several exceptions are thrown. Also, you probably know that there's a highlighting function. So when you place a caret on a throw stack, or a try keyword, or a cache keyword, PhpStorm highlights statements or expressions for you from which an exception is thrown. So now this functionality reuses the same engine, so it doesn't perform its own computations, which also saves on the CPU load. So what are key points of today's presentation? First of all, an IDE is a kinda complicated thing. So it not only is able to show you a code, highlighting it, like using fancy colors to mark keywords and so on, it also knows your code really deep. It analyzes it and tries to help you avoid some mistakes, some probable bugs, which is by itself rather a complicated task. And we, a PhpStorm team, we work hard to make PhpStorm both functional and performant. So this is one of our main goals. I'm not going to teach you any PHP anymore, as you have probably noticed from my presentation, but there's a little advice from my side. Try to be descriptive. When you write a code and you feel like it is appropriate to place a document, do it. It will help your reader. It will help an IDE to perform an analysis faster. And surprisingly, in some cases, like in case of, say, type hints, it even helps a runtime to understand the code. So it will prevent some unexpected bugs when you're trying to pass a variable, say, of a wrong type. So that was it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm waiting for questions.
Okay, the Marty has a question. Who do you think is the biggest rival of the PhpStorm? Who's the biggest rival?
Well,
be honest.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah, I probably won't be able to answer like many things.
So you don't feel that there is not as good idea as a PhpStorm, or you don't know any other?
Well, there are not so many PHP IDEs, to be honest. Like there's NetBeans, there's PDT, which is Eclipse right? And they're in some way great, but as an open source project, like you can see that what is done, and I don't really often check, but when I do, there is like not so many changes, and comparing with the list of fixes of features we do, like PhpStorm is fairly better. That's my opinion. It's absolutely unfair. But recently we have started to mention in our blog posts our backlog. So basically, we have an issue tracker. It is open. It was always open, so you can find on what we work now. And now there is just a new fancy view, so you can go there, check it out. Like, yeah, you'll probably see what we do and what we want to do.
Okay, thanks. There's small changes regarding the rewards for the questions. For the first 5 best questions, there will be a T-shirt after the conference. So the Marty and the others I will be mentioned, they will get T-shirt. So vote and ask. I got a second question from JD, and you should read it just from here because.
Okay. PHP throws class is not updated, removed automatically when thrown, and exception is removed, cache changed. Is it even possible to solve this problem? Yeah, this is a good question. Thank you. Yes, it is possible. It is, say, not possible to do it in an automatic way, like 100% automatic, but you can do it in a semi-automatic way. So I have mentioned that there are 4 inspections connected to exception handling, and one of them is the redundant throw stack. So basically, you can run it on the whole project. It will show PHP docs which had the throw tags which are not relevant anymore, and you can run a quick fix just from the batch run of inspections. So it will update the whole project. You still need to do it carefully. So it's like the PHP is a dynamic language, so it's hard to be sure when we perform static analysis. So better don't commit it immediately. Check it first, but yeah, basically there is a pair, like missing throw stacks, redundant throw stacks, so you can use them.
Okay, is development of PhpStorm completely separated from development of other JetBrains IDE like PyCharm or IntelliJ?
No, not really. Like as a team, which I mentioned before, like 15 people, 7 developers, we do things on our own, so we don't consult with IntelliJ team implementing PHP stuff. In this way we are separated, but the PhpStorm is built on top of IntelliJ platform. So it's a basis for all IDEs, our IDEs, including IntelliJ IDEA, PyCharm, and so on. And as a PhpStorm team, we contribute to the platform itself. So in this way, we are connected. So we get everything which was implemented in the platform, and we contribute to the platform to make it better, to make it work better in case of PHP, because sometimes PHP is like hell different from other languages. Like 40,000 lines in a PHP file is quite a normal thing still.
So there is a common core between all of your IDs.
Yeah, okay. That's correct.
And do you use Kotlin for PhpStorm development?
Yeah. The first question is from my side. Who knows what Kotlin is? Oh, it's not that bad as usual. Yeah, Kotlin is a programming language. It was invented, it was implemented at JetBrains, say 7 years ago maybe. Actually, this is kind of connected to our topic, because one of the reasons why JetBrains started to implement this language was exception handling, because Java is known for its null pointer, but yeah, sometimes it's really convenient to use it. It is used both in the core, in the IntelliJ platform, and in PhpStorm.
Okay. Is it hard to develop for Windows, Mac, and Linux?
Well, as a PhpStorm developer, I would say that no, it is not hard. We rarely do things which really depend on the platform, right? So we do language, we do analysis, we do inspections, we do framework support, and like, doesn't really matter on which platform you forgot to catch an exception, right? In terms of the UI, there are a lot of problems because it is hard to make Java problem to look really good because of the swing and all the stuff. And we have a dedicated UI team which works hard. We have our own fork of JDK, Java Development Kit. So, and as far as I know, JetBrains is the biggest contributor to the Java UI framework. So, in these terms, yes, development for free platforms is a really hard thing, but we do our best.
Okay, so I just have to announce that all the authors of all these questions have T-shirts over there. So after the conference, just check there. And there is one last question, unfortunately without the T-shirt, but it's more like the feature request. When is support for MacBook's Touchbar coming out?
Oh yeah, good thing. I think our UI team, they got new MacBook almost immediately after it got released. So they're aware of the problem for sure, and they did some investigation, they made some proof of concept and so on. And the thing is that it's probably a fancy thing. You can, like, you know, do stuff, scroll things and so on. But we didn't find a way to make it efficient for our IDs. So it's a more UX user experience problem than the technical one. So we still work on it. We are trying to find ways, but so far, no luck. So be in touch.
Okay, that's all. Thank you very much, Artem.